In just over 300 episodes on Off the Podium, we have spoken to a myriad of athletes from a myriad of sports, from a myriad of countries around the world. And today we are speaking to our very first ever Hungarian guest on the show. And what a guest to be able to break this duck, to get somebody on from Hungary. She is a two-time Olympian, two-time Olympic gold medalist, 7 times world champion in the sport of canoe sprint. And we love sprint canoeists on this show. We always love talking about this sport. And I'm so excited to not only learn about her amazing career, but also the sport in Hungary and Hungary in general. I think we're going to be very educated today on Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to welcome to Off the Podium Krisztina Fazekas-Zur. Krisztina, first of all, thank you so much for your time on Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Now, I've got to start off. How was my Hungarian pronunciation there? Did I get it? Was I in the right sort of ballpark there, or do I need to sort of do a bit more practicing with that?
Oh, no, that was fine. Yeah,
That was
perfect.
fine. Okay, good. All right. I'm not great on the pronunciations generally on this show, Krisztina, so I just need to always check that and clarify that there. But I mean, so excited to chat to you, to learn about your career, because as I discovered in the lead up to this interview, canoeing in Hungary is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big sport. Third most successful at the Summer Olympics in terms of at least gold medals won. Second most successful in terms of overall medals won by Hungary. So, is this a sport that most Hungarians or a lot of Hungarians do growing up? And is this how you got involved in the sport?
Yeah, it's very, very popular in Hungary, kayaking. It's we have so many clubs in during all over the country. We have a lot of rivers, lakes, so we have a place to training. And yeah, so it's a good career to everybody knows. It's a very successful sport. So being an athlete in Hungary, it can be a very good career. So everybody choose to the sport, but it has a chance to go to the Olympic and get medal. And kayaking is that sport, but you really see the result and how successful it is all over the world. And many kids choose this sport because of that, and the system what it's built up, it's very professional how they're requiring kids to come and train in the clubs, and they're going to schools and they're asking kids to come and join. So yeah, it's really popular in Hungary.
So is that sort of what drew you into the sport? Had you sort of just seen it, had some friends who maybe got involved in it, and you thought you'd give it a try?
Yeah, actually, my brother tried canoeing, and this is how my sister. I have a twin sister. We followed him to the closest club, and this is how we got involved. But this is not the popular way. So most of the people are coming because it's just there everywhere now. So and especially in the summer, when kids start in the summer, it's a blast because you on the water, you have camps, you can be all day long next to the water, and it's happening. It's what it says outside.
Did you play many other sports growing up? And I guess on a side question to that, what are some of the other popular sports that, say, kids play often in Hungary growing up?
I started with tennis and I did some karate, but when I was 10, I already got sucked in this kayaking life. And after 32 years, I retired. So I didn't really do like when I was a kid other sport. But since I moved to the US, I did stand-up paddling, surf ski, and outrigger paddling, all the paddling, but still paddling. So I'm kind of a paddling person.
You like the paddling? It's kind of it's something that
I love to be on the water and outside, and yeah. And kayaking, it's a very complex sport. So in Hungary, we swim, example, in the winter because it's so cold. You cannot be outside kayaking. So we swimming, we running, we go to the gym, we go ski, cross country ski. So it's a lot of other sport involved in our sport, so that's make it more interesting.
And did you, when you were younger, watch the Olympics? Was the Olympics something you always saw as a goal, or did that sort of come later as you progressed throughout the sport?
Yeah, this is how the Olympic got me to really focus on the sport, because I think I always wanted to be Olympic champion. So watching Olympics and see the stories of the athletes, it's always motivated me and inspired me to be an Olympic champion too. So since in the beginning, I really wanted. I was not so good, but I always had in the future sometimes I'm gonna get my stuff together and I'm gonna be a Olympic champion. So
I love that focus. Yeah, fantastic.
No, I wasn't that focused. I had a dream, but very long time I couldn't.
Dream focus. I like to think they're kind of the same in a weird way. I mean, I have dreams of Olympics still one day, Krisztina. I'm getting on a bit, but you never know. Never say never. I mean, when you get started, do you just sort of try your hand at both canoeing and kayaking? Because I mean, obviously both are different, the K and the C. Or is it more of a case of it's always been the kayak side of things and canoeing wasn't really for you?
So when I started, we didn't have a woman canoe. So it was not even an option. So I started kayaking because that was what I could do. So just a man could do canoe and kayaking. So
it's obviously changed a little bit now that there's a few of the canoe sort of events now in the Olympics. Which do you, as you progress and that becomes available, do you try it, or are you so focused on the kayaking side of things that there's no real point in trying the canoeing, even if it's getting developed?
I was focused on kayaking so much. So I tried, of course. I went for a paddle or something, but I find it very difficult to be honest with you. And it didn't come it would be not an easy transaction. So it would take a lot of time and effort to be a good canoeist. So I felt I never had that time between two Olympics, to focus on changing. But yeah, it was in my head sometimes, maybe in the canoe field would be a little bit easier to get there.
Or a little bit smaller.
yeah. But honestly, I never put the effort to start or try really hard. It's hard. So for me, canoeing is like, oh my gosh, it's too hard.
Kayaking to me itself seems hard enough, and then you add that element to it, because I mean it's such a physical sport. I can imagine upper body. Of course, we've talked to a lot of canoe kayak athletes on the show, and just hearing that level you've got to have in the gym and working out. I mean, physically demanding sport. I mean, could you give us a bit of a rundown when you're at the gym? Like, sort of, what are a weekly gym session for you? Like, how often are you there, and what sort of are you focusing on to really get yourself into peak competition form?
Yeah, so kayaking and canoeing, it's a very overall sport. So we are a sprinter, but not really a sprinter. Yeah, so our distance, 500 meter, even a 200 meter, that is the shortest distance, but actually they took out from now the Olympic. But the 200, it sounds like a sprint, but it's over 40 or 30 seconds for the guys. I think 34, 33. I don't know if we can go 33. I don't know yet. So that's over the sprint. It's still involved a lot of lactate on the last couple of seconds or 10 seconds. So we cannot say we are a poor sprint sport, and especially 1,000 meter, that is like 4 minutes for women and 3:30 around for the men. That's a lot of lactate. So we need power, we need lactate tolerance, we need endurance, we need everything. So it's like we really have to work to be good with everything. So if not enough, if you are a good sprinter and you can go to the gym and do a lot of heavy weight and get very strong, because the muscle needs to have a lot of oxygen. If you want to go a little bit longer distance, that's maybe not the best. So it really has to find the balance, how much you going to the gym. But of course we are every day in the gym, and usually out of the competition season we focus on to strength and get power and a lot of endurance. So we do, like, what can I tell you, like if I do a circuit training, I do like a minute or 90-second station. So try to do a longer repetition, or we do strengthen, like how do you say it in English? So we work on power when we do like very heavy, like 4 times 10 reps or something like that. So we work on everything, and we do, for the start or for the sprinter, they need speed. So we have a very explosive exercises. So yeah, it's very, very complex, our sport. So we have to work on every part of the sprint, endurance, and the strength.
And in terms of then, when you're progressing through it, and you've got that discrepancy, as you mentioned, between the 1,000 and the 200, do you have to at a certain point go, okay, I would rather do the 200 than the 1,000, or I'm good at the 500? I mean, can you sort of be diverse over all three, or does a sprinter generally need to focus on the shorter versus the longer distances?
I believe because it's not poor sprint that you can do all of it. Just maybe one of it, it's harder for you to prepare. But example for me, the 200 would be a little bit harder because I'm not a sprinter. I don't have that muscle building. I have more like a longer distance. So for me, the quickness and the start and going fast is harder. So maybe I have to focus on it much more than going 500. I think 500 is my distance. And somebody who is a sprinter, they still can work on endurance, because if you have an advantage to start, but you still. So I believe everybody can work on endurance. So I think for somebody who doesn't have a speed aspect of it, that's harder than if somebody a sprinter and has to work on endurance. I think it's more doable than for me to do 200. I always try because it's so short, so you can even enjoy it. But I miss that part. Like my husband is a kayaker too, so totally my opposite. So he was a sprinter. He has that muscle for the sprint and the explosiveness, and I really can see the difference. But he was very good in 500 too, and he could race in 1,000 too. It's matter of how much effort you put. I believe you can be good all of the distance if you put the right effort.
So it's not like say athletics where 100-meter sprinter is not going to run a 1,500 meter, are they? Like, there's such a discrepancy in sprint. Even swimming, you're not really going to have a 100-meter do a 1,500 meter, whereas you have a lot of athletes who would do a 200, a 500, and a 1,000.
Yeah, I know some of them, but honestly, you have to specialize too. So if you focus on 200, it's hard to do the 1,000. I don't mean that you can do it in one competition season. That has to be somebody very special and very, very talented and very, very good. but you can switch. So if you focus on one Olympic example, now we don't have any more 200 meters. So the 200-meter guy have to focus on 500. They can switch to be a very good 500-meter guy. This is what I mean. You have to work on your weakness too. So it's not gonna just change. And it's a little bit different preparation to prepare for 200 or for 1,000 meter. So it's hard to do it in one season.
And I can imagine too, that's a similar aspect when it comes to, say, being in a K1 versus a K4. Do you sort of get to a point where you are more of a K4 athlete than a K1, or is it a sport where you can diversify it, so you can be all of them, do a K1, a K2, and a K4 at an event, and it doesn't really make too much of a difference?
Yeah, so example, in Hungary, we have a girl with Dana, Kozak Danusha. She won example in Rio, the K1, K2, and the K4.
Wow. So, you can do them all.
Yeah, she did all. So yeah, so it's possible. In Hungary, our system it's built on the K1 results. So if you are good in K1, this is how you can get in the K4. So you have to be good in K1. It's very rare happen that you are not good in K1 and you can sit in the K4. So it's built on the ability that you are successful in K1 too. But example, just because sometimes you're missing a little bit. Like for me, I never won the K1, the selection in Hungary. I got always second or third. So I didn't really race just World Cups, or when I was in the US and race for the US. That time I raced in K1 international field. So for me, a little bit easier the K4 because it's a team and we can reliable on each other. So it's take off a little bit of pressure on your shoulders in one hand, and the other hand put a little bit more, because for me, example, I always, what if I, make a mistake? You're messing up for everybody. So yeah, so here a little bit, here is a adding. So yeah, it's different, a different mindset, and for being a K1 paddler, it has to be, I think you have to have a little bit more than inside, like in for K4. I mean, so many people are not going to be happy if I'm saying that, but this is my opinion.
I think we know what you mean. I think we know what you mean there.
This is my opinion for me.
So, I mean, it almost in a way sounds a lot like swimming or track and field, in like sort of that, you say the 4x100 relay in swimming, you might be the second or third best swimmer. You might not necessarily get selected to be in the individual race, but you're good enough to be in the relay. So it's kind of, if you're the second or third best paddler, then you might not get the individual race, but you will be in the K4 essentially. It's kind of like being selected for a relay almost. Yeah.
And interesting things that you have to actually, in Hungary, our selection, it's usually run for K1 and K2, and after the selection they put together the K4. So we don't have K4 selection anymore.
Wow.
But we used to have. So 2008 Sydney, Beijing, the selection was in K4 example, and before then we always had K4 selection too. So that was a little bit different time. But after 2008, and for us, the men has different selection criteria too. So for them, still had K4 selections. But for the woman, I was actually very lucky, because I think I moved to the US after Beijing. I didn't make the team in Beijing, so I moved to US 2010. And I was racing for the US for 2 years, 2010 and 2011, yeah. So I wanted to go for the Olympic, but I didn't get my citizenship. So I had to go back to Hungary and qualify for the Hungarian team.
Wow.
And I didn't have a club, I didn't have, teammates or something to form a K4 or, to have a chance to race in the K4. And I was so lucky that the year they changed the selection criteria and they said, okay, no more K4 selection, because it was kind of not so fair, because if a bigger club had 4 people, they could put together 4 people. And if you are very talented, but you're in the smaller club, it was hard for you to get into a K4. So they changed it. And that was that year when I came back from the US. And this is how I made 2012 to the team to London. That
Perfect
I was
timing. Wow.
Yeah, I got second in K1, and this way I qualified for the K4. So yeah,
that's crazy. So I know obviously you mentioned your husband, 3-time Olympian himself, I believe, for Israel and the US. So obviously your attempt to represent the US, was that because you were living there because of him? And then, as you were saying, it was a citizenship thing. So sort of the goal was to compete for America, but it was a whole citizenship situation essentially.
Yeah, so I moved to the US and I was ready to give up on kayaking. I didn't make the 2004, the 2008 Olympics. So I was like, okay, so maybe it's not for me. And I moved here to the US because my boyfriend that time lived here. So I tried to give a try how we can get together. So I moved here and I didn't know what to do with my life at that time. I didn't really speak English. Like I learned English in high school, but my German was much better than my English. So I moved here. I have no idea what to do. And I was thinking, okay, you know what? Let's continue kayaking here in the US to see what I can do. I was alone here, and here in where I live in Newport Beach, it was not team, because in San Diego was the center of the kayaking life here. So I start training, and I just asked my husband, hey, can you please help me to see my technique, and maybe I write the program to, I just asked him to help, to create something together. And actually it was good. I felt very good. I got to the team. We go K2, K1, and finally, because in Hungary I never had a chance to race in K1 because I was not that good. Finally I raced K1 and I really, really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, it's so good. I can do this. So I other year I started very seriously. So 2010 I was like kind of we'll see. And 2011 I was like, okay, let's focus on this. I can do this. Finally K1, I'm gonna do it. So I actually won World Cups that year, 2011. K1 500 and K1 1000 I managed to win. But in the World Championship, they didn't let me race because it was a selection for the Olympic. It was the World Championship where you can get quota. And because I was not a citizen, I couldn't get quota. So they didn't let me race in the Olympic event. And
wow.
So that year I won the K1, the Olympic event in the World Cups. And I was so not happy with the decision because I knew very well that the girl not going to qualify in the World Championship.
Yeah.
was just not there yet, and she had to qualify in the Pan Am anyway, so I could just race and get the quota in the Pan Am anyway.
How extraordinary. Anyway, wow.
Yeah, so that year we did it really good with my husband, helped me coaching and get it was not official that he's coaching me, we just did it together. So that time we tried to get my citizenship back, make it a little bit faster, but it didn't work out. So they told me, just go back to Hungary. We let you go back and try to go to the track there and make the team in Hungary. So we actually, we trained all the winter here and we show up on the trials in May in Hungary, and everybody was like, what are you doing here? Yeah, I'm going to try. I don't care. And that was not easy because in Hungary, it's, how can I say in a nice way, people are very sure about themselves that they cannot win, or or who are you to come from the US and try here, like everybody has like almost the cards, but they cannot race or something.
Yep.
So
yeah.
and I just went there and I was like, wow, I don't care, I cannot try. I didn't try. So I got second, and this way I qualified for the Olympic. I was so happy. And actually we had a case, but after the Olympic, I don't know what country, maybe Poland or England, but they tried to see maybe they can disqualify us because I was racing for the US before 1 year.
Wow.
But when I changed the national, I changed the country, I went over all the Olympic rules and all the national rules and international rules, and it's so interesting how I don't understand why it's not the same, the Olympic and the international rules in kayaking. So example, it was just a little word, but it's let me race for Hungary. Like really, if I cannot race for Hungary, I couldn't race for anybody. And the Olympic Charter said everybody has a chance to race for the Olympic. So this is how I could race, because otherwise you have to wait 2 years or something when you change the country to race. It's complicated. Anyway, and they try to make maybe they can disqualify us. And I remember I was already back in the US when I got a phone call from my federation. Hey, but how did you get to Hungary to race? And what was the rules? And because now we got this phone call from the ICF, and I was like, everybody was so scared. And I was like, no, they can't disqualify us. I know the rules. This is the rules. Go over it. And actually they didn't file anything. It was they just filed for complaint or the question for the ICF. So
yeah, wow,
it died out. So that's
insane. What an incredible period. Which, because I was going to say, would have been an extraordinary period that time when at a World Cup you win a gold medal, you're hearing the Star Spangled Banner, USA national anthem, and then you go to a World Championship and you're hearing the Hungarian, like straight away, that's a bit strange. But yeah, that's fascinating that you sort of have those different rules, because I know that's a case in a lot of different sports, that you'll have World Championship rules and Olympic rules, and that's, a lot of discrepancies. But just to represent your country, you're the best in the world. You want to go to the Olympics, and there's lots of hurdles to go through over a simple thing of what flag you're wearing on your shirt.
Yeah, that's because they don't want to jumping country by country, the athletes, and I understand that too. But in my case, it was just I just didn't get my citizenship on time, because it just takes time after you get your green card to get your citizenship. And I was still in the kayaker, so what I can do. So yeah, this was my story for my first Olympic. Was it's kind of interesting.
That's crazy. I can guarantee you, Krisztina, had you not been able to go back to Hungary and the USA didn't want you could have come to Australia. We're pretty friendly. You probably could have just gone, yeah, we'll have her. Yeah, absolutely. World champion in kayaking, we'll have her.
You guys are very strong in kayaking, so I don't think so they want somebody to, take the spot. Yeah. Australia is very good in kayaking.
We've got a few good ones. We'll own that. Which, I mean, in that entire period, through everything that you went through there, and you're just wanting to get to an Olympics, you've missed out on a couple beforehand. You said you nearly gave up the sport. What was that feeling like when you went back to Hungary and you qualified and you were then officially an Olympian? I mean, how do you remember that feeling of that? Hey, guess what? You are now an Olympian. You're going to your first Olympics.
Oh my God. Wow, that was amazing feeling, because I totally remember, because I remember to lining up in the start line. I came there, I get to the final, and I lining up with Olympic champion. Everybody was almost like, like, I don't know if you heard of Kovács Kati, Janic Natasha, all these big names were next to me, and it's like, wow. And I just, I worked so hard for it, and I felt like I did so much, and my weakness was always in my life to believe in myself. So that was what, I was came for me the hardest to believe that I can do such a big thing. And when I moved to the US and I trained alone and not in the big team, that helped me a little bit focus on myself, because I'm the person who's always focusing around everybody, just not myself. So that was very difficult for me to train alone, example, totally alone. I was totally alone. But other hand, it's helped me to learn how to focus on myself and how to pull out from myself what I can do, and not always just going after the best. I was always training with the best, and I just watching them. Oh my gosh, they are so good. I didn't focus on I can be so good. Just but they are so fast. Let's try to keep up with them. And that was really, really my weakness. I never could focus on myself. So that time I went that race, and I was like, I don't care who is here, who is there, or who is there. One thing I care, here is this lady, I'm gonna beat them. Next to me, I have to be in front of them, and that's all. And I was so happy. I didn't win. I got like this much from the first person, Danusha, who actually won the Olympic that year. So I lost from her, but I was very happy to get second, because before I never got second in the Hungarian selection. So that was amazing for me. And the rules said that I'm qualified right away for the K4. We had one more race for the K1 spot. Yeah, that was not so good for me. Went to World Cup in Duisburg, and we had to race at the international field. So she and me was, it was kind of a race off. If I could beat her, we could have one more race in Hungary, just she and me.
Wow.
But I almost, like, it was terrible race. So I was last. When I get so, I don't know, not focused, and you just, oh my gosh, it's the chance, and you just screw it. So I screw it up so bad, and I just watching back all the time that race, what did I do? And I see I was the last one in the field until 250, when I finally recognized, oh my gosh, I have to go. And I couldn't catch up, so I got third place. She got first, and she dominated. She was very, very strong. Wow. She took the K1 spot, and I could get the K4 spot. So
silver lining that you at least get that K4 spot, but I mean, obviously disappointing not to get that individual one. But I mean, what was in that period like after qualifying and then leading up to London? Do you just have to sort of put that disappointment of not making the K1 spot in the back of your mind and then just focus purely, okay, well, we've got a job to do, the K4? Because at that point, I believe it was, 20 years since Hungary had won a gold in that event? So it had been a while since Hungary had taken a gold in that event.
Exactly. So I honestly, I was not disappointed. I was very, very happy that I made the K4. I think this is why I screwed up in Duisburg, because I was already satisfied that I'm on the team, and I didn't have that fire and hunger. And again, I didn't believe myself that I can do the K1. So I think this was the problem for the K1 spot. So I think it just mentally I was not strong enough to take the K1, and I was happy for the K4. So I didn't feel any disappointment. And we had a very good team. We after the whole selection process, because after we had other selections for the K2 and for the men's and everything. So when it was done, we start training together in the K4, and with the new rules, we had to stay together. So we couldn't go back to our coach or something. So we had one coach us together, and it was a good team. So we were strong, and we were ready. And we were very hungry to win that Olympic after 20 years. we couldn't. So it was very good time. That year it was amazing for me. The Olympic and everything. It was just so much fun, and it was a joy. I have to say that.
I can imagine, because I love the fact that so Hungary won it in 92, but then Germany go on a bit of a streak to win the next 4. And now Hungary have now won the last 3. But that gold in London, you beat Germany to retain the crown, which is there like a strong rivalry, a Hungarian-German rivalry? I mean, in any sport, but also I can imagine canoeing when you've got this sort of, back and forth between the K4 and the gold in the last, 6 or so Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. And we won world championships during that period, but we couldn't win the Olympic until Rio. London. And yeah, that was a big deal. But we were so ready, like we were just really, we're gonna do it. So it was almost no doubt that we're gonna do it.
I gotta say quickly that. Go ahead.
My head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, you've got to have that mentality, I can imagine. But I was going to say, with the K1 though, I mean, I'll say one thing. That was a period where Lisa Carrington started to dominate, right? She hasn't lost that event at the Olympics. So, I mean, I'm sure you might have beaten Lisa. I don't know. But I mean, Lisa's kind of been unstoppable. So maybe you were lucky to avoid going into the K1 in London.
The K1, she won the 200. So the Hungarian girl won the K1 500.
Right, okay, the 5, so the 2. Right, okay, other way around. That's where I'm getting confused with that. So, I had to mention Lisa, though, at some point, though, Krisztina. I mean, I know I'm an Australian and she's a New Zealander, but, I mean, we're weirdly proud of Lisa and we're not even from her country. We just think she's amazing, particularly on the show. So, you got to bring her up every now and then. But, I mean, seeing your countrywoman win then the 500, then is that a case of a what if? Like, oh, what if I was in there? Then I've beaten her before. That could have been me.
No, Lisa is amazing. She got the K1 that London. London. She won the K1. That was the first time K1 200 was in the Olympic. So she won, and since that nobody beat her.
Yeah,
never lost. Yeah, and now after Rio, I think she started to focus on the 500 too, and she made it in Tokyo.
Insane. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, she's a beast, Lisa. She's just something else. New Zealand's most decorated Olympian of all time, which I mean, it's for people I don't think realize a lot about New Zealand. Obviously, a very small country, and for them to have that level of success is quite a big deal. So it's we give them a bit of shit. Krisztina, but we like them. They're
I like
fine.
her. She's a very good friend of mine. So we have a good relationship. So I always
good to know,
because we went to surf race too, and I think that was so amazing for me. I never did surf ski in my life before because in Hungary we don't have ocean or something.
Yeah.
It was really not a thing. And I went to this race, and I totally remember when she just grabbed the kayak and showed me, "Hey, this is how you do it, do, and poof." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you know how to do this?" And
that's
she was,
crazy.
And I remember she told me that she actually raced in surf ski before, and I was just so impressed. All this, the Australians, Noemi Flood, and all these girls that they can do these surf ski things. But I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? It's like really, really impressive. That
I mean, a lot of the canoe and kayakers we've had on the show from Australia, that's their background. They start in the surf ski and they sort of transition into the sprint because sadly surf life-saving, not an Olympic sport. Maybe in Brisbane 2032 there's a lot of good oceans in that part of the country, so you never know. But it's sort of interesting when you're talking about your background of how it happens in Hungary. It's a very good point. You don't really have oceans in Hungary, so obviously you've got sort of a lot more of that flat water side of things, whereas for us it's kind of the opposite. We live on the ocean basically, so a lot of our athletes come from that side of things. So have you been to Australia? Have you competed or come to Australia to compete?
I never been out there, and all my friends always ask me to come, and I just never been. My husband went there a couple of times, but he actually raced in Sydney. I never been.
Well, you're in California, and it's very similar Australia, California. We've got, lots of golden beaches, lots of laid
Mhm.
backness. I think kind of the attitudes would be very different there. I'm just saying, come out of retirement. You've only got 10 years to Brisbane. I'm sure you get yourself back into shape, compete in another Olympics, Krisztina. Come on, you can do that.
Come on, I told my husband this year because I was still trying to go to Tokyo and I didn't make the team last year. And I was injured. I have this neck injury, very bad disc harmonia, or how do you say it in English? I don't know, something like this. Anyway.
I would have a guess, but my medical knowledge not too great. So you're probably going to get it closer in English than I will, Krisztina. So.
Anyway, so I didn't make the team and I didn't do anything for 6 months until I finally get back to be a little bit of paddling and more thirsty and outrigger. And this year I just watched the World Championship, I think. And I was like, no, I'm ready to go. I have to start training. It's almost Paris. I can do this. And I told my husband, hey, I think I'm going to go for it. He said, no, you are too old.
Wow. Damn. Burn. You're sleeping on the couch tonight.
You can go for it, but I'm not going to coach you anymore. Can you imagine 10 years coaching by your husband or for him coaching me? That was like...
Jeez. Okay. I'm all for honesty, but sugarcoat it a little bit,
No, he's not that kind. So he just said, you are too old. So I was like, okay. So I just go sometimes to pedal and I just dreaming, I still can do it. I still can do it. I still feel the movement. I can do this. And just, I just need a 32-hour day or something. Put the work and put the kids and put training. I was like, yeah. So I don't know. I'm still dreaming, but it's not.
I never say never, Chris. Age is just a number. Let's be honest. I know you'll be 10 years older in Brisbane, but just for once, don't listen to your husband. You can do it. You've got Off the Podium's support. I don't think you're too old at all. You've got it on you. You can do it. Go on, do it for Hungary.
Yep. No, I would go for US.
We'll do it for America. And if they don't want you, do it for Australia. We could use you. Wouldn't we? We've got some good ones, as we said, but we could add you.
Maybe the Master Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Cover it that way. I would love to know, we always like to find out from our guests, just outside of competing at an Olympics, your experiences in general at the Olympics. So when you got to London, a great Olympics to go to for your first Olympics, opening ceremony, village life, were you trading pins, were you bumping into Usain Bolt, Michael Phelps? What was that whole experience like outside of the competition?
Yeah, so all of this didn't happen with me because kayaking is always in the end of the Olympics, kind of, so like last week. And we always go in, very late. So we never go to the opening ceremony example.
I thought it would be the opposite. I thought you'd turn around and say no, put me in earlier week because I want to experience this, and then, soak it up. And so that, can you have that choice, or are they very strict on that?
No, very strict. They want you to focus on training, not just going around and get, distracted with all this happening around. So we actually got there pretty late. And that was funny because my husband went there earlier because he had some job to do, and he was helping his friend from Israel to selling tickets. I don't know what was the main thing, but he was in London in the hotel, and it was so good because when I finished my race, we could just hang out over there in London because the kayaking is always out from the city, usually like far away or something. And that hotel was a private hotel. We didn't even stay with the
accredited athletes.
Yeah. So I was so lucky because that time the K4 was the first race for the kayaking, so we couldn't get down, and we won. We were so happy, and we still had like 4 days or 5 days until the crossing. So, and my husband could get a lot of tickets, so actually I could go and experience the whole experience in London, and my parents were there, and it was just so amazing. London was very, very good, and we had the whole experience. We went to other events, we went to London, we went to parties. We really enjoyed that time.
Did you do the closing ceremony as well?
Closing ceremony, yeah.
Spice Girls, you got to see it all. Great closing ceremony.
Yeah. So it was amazing. London was like the perfect Olympic for me. It was just so good. Rio was not like that. Rio.
Well, I was going to say, like, how did that compare to Rio? Because it's interesting with the guests we've had on who say went to Rio and Tokyo, because so many people have said to them, oh, Rio is going to be an unusual Olympics. Of course, Tokyo happens, a little bit more unusual, but they obviously weren't to see that. But, I mean, what were those experiences like in Rio? Like, was it an unusual Olympics?
So Rio, it was very big, different for me, the qualification too, and I had already my little son, 2 years old at that time, and actually I left him at home, and it was very, very stressful for me.
Imagine.
And I don't know why, maybe because of that, and I was actually stressed because the race too in London, I didn't even, I was so confident, and I was not nervous at all. And Rio, I was so nervous, I was so stressed, and our event was the last event. It was like we couldn't go anywhere, we were just in the hotel. And we ended the race, and we had one party, and the other day we came home. So it was just, I felt like Rio for me was a stressful race, and we didn't see so much, nothing actually.
Wow.
And it just flew by like this, and poof, and we were on the plane home. So it was very different. Yeah, I have to say London was, for me, my personal experience was much better. It's not because the Olympic by itself, it's because my racing schedule and how everything was scheduled, it was just different. And yeah, it came out that, yeah, we won. So it's good. Just the experience was different.
Well, I was going to add, I mean, you say you do your race, you have one party, you go home, but you still got a nice piece of jewelry around your neck to add to the one from London. I mean, take us through both of those moments. London, gold medal, you win it. Right back to what we said at the beginning of this interview, you had a dream of going to the Olympics. You've ticked that off. You're in London. You've done the work. You've taken gold. You've broken this drought for Hungary. It's been 20 years. You've beaten the Germans. I mean, everything about this. You're in a boat with some great women as well who have done very well. I mean, for you personally, Krisztina, what's that like when you cross that line and you're an Olympic champion?
Oh, I don't know how to describe it. I saw back in pictures those, you know, when you see the pictures and you really can see on my face that it was just kind of like such a relief and happiness that it's there, and then we got it, and it was just, you know, like it was like in the dream when you're dreaming about crossing the finish line. It was totally that feeling. You know, so many times in life happen that you're dreaming about it, or you see a destination in the postcard and it's so beautiful, and when you got there, it's like, yeah, I saw better, or in my dream was better a little bit, or my imagination made it better. No, that was not. It was just the same, and it was just perfect. Yeah.
Which I love. So in Australia, when an athlete wins a gold medal, they get, one of the honours they get is they get a stamp. So you get your face on a stamp in Australia, basically. I'm seeing here that you are given the Order of Merit of Hungary, an Officer's Cross in 2012 and a Commander's Cross in 2016, which I believe is a pretty high honour in Hungary. What do Olympic gold, is that like the main thing you get as Olympic gold medalist? Do you come home and you get street parades? Like, explain to us, like, how do Hungarians treat their Olympic gold medalists? Because I'd love to learn kind of what that brings you.
It's very two-sided. When you are successful and you get the gold, you get treated very nicely. And this is the whole idea. So many people want to do sport in Hungary because it's really a career. You can make money, a lot of money. You can be a celebrity. You can, your life, it's gonna be a little bit higher level than average for sure. And this is a good motivation for, it's a poor country. We have to say that we are not the most, so the average salary may be $800, and I think I'm a little bit higher level than it is actually. But so this is a very good opportunity for kids that like me, who didn't come from money, to make a living and be successful and make money. So when you get the gold, you get a lot of money, a chunk of money after the competition, and you have a monthly salary, but it's more like a scholarship. So you get that a very high level every month, but extra, and what's very important, you get pension for life.
Right.
So after you turn 35, you get pension, every gold medal or every medal that you make.
Wow.
So yeah, we get treated very well in Hungary. But other hand, when you are not succeed, you get silver, or you get bronze, or you get fourth place or fifth place. It's sometimes, and I remember clearly Rio was the Olympic when I recognized that so many athletes, judo guys, and who competed before us, didn't bring the expected result, and they get treated very not nice, because this money coming from the government, so people think
so
just
government
because
money, not just from the Olympic Committee, it's government. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Government money. So sometimes people think, because it's taxpayer money, they can, it's like, it's my money and you wasted my money, kind of thing. So you get third place, why you couldn't go better, because, kind of. So it's not everybody like this. I don't say, and I have to say the most of the people are not like this, but we have this part of the fans, and that can be very, very hurtful and very putting a lot of pressure on people. And I remember that Olympic that not one athlete already said in the social media or stand up and saying, hey guys, that's not okay how you treat me just because I didn't get the result. It's a competition. Everybody's doing the best, you just because I didn't win, you have to be respectful the winner. They were better. They put the same amount of work. They won. They were better. So it's not like, you don't respect him as a better result, kind of things. So sometimes it's have this side of it, but yeah.
Interesting. It's always fascinating to sort of learn that in different countries, because as I said at the top, we've had many athletes from many different countries, and I always love sort of hearing how that's treated. But it's interesting. I mean, we talk about here in Australia, if somebody doesn't perform, they just get a bit of a ribbing in the media. That's it. It's, like kind of try harder next time. But to sort of hear that it's sort of almost a make it or break it thing sometimes from many athletes, and particularly certain sports when it's so expensive to compete in, particularly say some of the winter sports. I can't imagine that obviously is, not a big hurdle. Do you have a lot of athletes then, such as yourself, who try to go to other countries to represent because maybe it's sort of not that level of, I guess, pressure that if you don't perform?
Yeah, we have couple of, I remember example that was so funny. 2011 when I was racing for the US, and I could race just the 1,000 meter, and actually the world championship was in Hungary. So it was an interesting thing to race.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And I had in my final 4 Hungarian. One was racing for Hungary, one was me racing for the US. One girl was racing for Spain, and one girl was racing for Argentina.
Wow.
So yeah.
How did the crowd react to that? I mean, technically they've got 4 Hungarians in the final, but only one of them's wearing the red, white, and green.
Yeah, it was very nice actually. I was a little bit, kind of feel like, what I gonna get on the podium or something. And they were so nice, unbelievable. Like, it's like I was racing for Hungary for like 20 years when I left. So, and I just, they were so nice. And I got the same, how do you say it?
Same reaction, same sort of like,
reaction.
yeah.
And it was very good feeling.
Well, that's good. I'm glad there was sort of no animosity or anything towards you there, that they can sort of have that. So that's good to hear. I asked about getting the gold in London, and you talked about sort of the difficulties in Rio versus London, but I mean, still crossing the line, Olympic champion, you've defended the gold for Hungary. I mean, do you get a similar feeling, or because it's like, I've done this before, another gold, sure, we'll just put it in the pile?
Oh, no, that was for me the biggest relief. I don't know why, and I told my husband that before the race that I was super nervous. I don't know why. Like I'm not that nervous before the races, so I can put it that. I like to race, so for me the racing is always a fun part. I like it, and I don't know why Rio was for me was. I think I know why, because one time in training, I messed up the start, like, and something happened with my pedal, and slide in, and I couldn't pedal after I almost fall out from the kayak.
Wow.
And I had that feeling, I couldn't get out from my head. What's gonna happen? What if it's gonna happen there? What if it's gonna? And I think that was my nervous, like maybe, in unconscious, I didn't think about it all the time. I just think maybe something made me so nervous. Everybody asked me, hey, what's up with you? I was like, oh, nothing, let's do it. And I think because it my body language shows that I'm very nervous, and I used to not be so nervous. So I don't know, Rio was it's really stressful for me, and I think when we won, I just felt like, oh, finally it's
relief.
Yeah, we made it, and yeah, it's of course it was a happiness, but I think it was more a relief that finally it's all year was very stressful. I think because I had a kid already, and we were always sick, like all year long. I was always sick. Like I can tell you, when I was a child, I didn't have a voice. This is how I competed, and I didn't do well. I got 4th place, and the 4th place is always politics. You either in or you out. It didn't really depend on me. I couldn't get in London, when I got the 2nd place, it was a very strong place in the K4. Like it's no way they can take you out. But that year we had to actually do a tryout after the selection, that 3 girls had to sit in the K4. So 3 girls were standard, and 1 place was open. And
Wow.
We tried 3 girls, and I was so sick, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, and it's not depend on me. It's not depend on me anymore. It's depend on the girls on the boat. It's depend on the coaches. It's depend on so many things. It's not on me. First, that was the worst feeling, and after I remember the worst feeling was when they came to me and they said, yeah, you made it, but I have to separate from my son, because they're afraid that I'm gonna get sick, and all the team is gonna be sick, and because he's in kindergarten, and not kindergarten, daycare, and da-da-da. And I was like, no way, no. And I told them, no, I can't do that. And that was, again, it's like all year was stressful for me, like really, like all these little things, like, maybe for other people it's nothing. For me, was really meaningful. Like,
I can imagine having to make that decision, like sort of between, you separating from
so
your
I,
son or an Olympics.
so I told them, no, I'm not going to do that. And they let it go eventually. So I was lucky. I didn't have to fight for it so much. I just put my stand down. No, no way. And so I think the when I crossed the line, all the stress just went away, and I couldn't to go home and see him. It was like 3 weeks I didn't see him, and it's my first child. It's different, this is like, you feel like, oh my gosh, this is the life, and you missed that 3 weeks. Of course, it's different
away that
now.
long. Wow.
When you have other kids and they are bigger now, you understand that 3 weeks was just 3 weeks. That's it from there. You
need to remind him of that though when he gets older, and maybe he's being naughty or something. You're like, I gave up 3 weeks so I can win you an Olympic gold medal, son. You respect what I did for you. Like, you can hold that over him though, if anything.
Yeah.
That works.
That was the story of the Rio. That was for me was very different.
Which you mentioned, obviously not making Tokyo. I'm assuming that obviously was the goal. Like, was that extra difficult seeing the girls win the gold again, the what ifs, or was it a case of, if you can't go, well, I'm still happy that they were able to sort of defend the title?
That was very strange for me, because I remember Sydney, when I didn't make the team, and that was awful, really. Like, I was like, this is when I was like, I'm finished kayaking, I don't care anymore. That time I moved to the US and all these things, and I was like, done. And it really hurt me. And Tokyo, it hurt, like, like, okay, I didn't make it, but not too long. It was just, this is what is it. I was happy for the girls. I really, really could enjoy watching them winning, and I had really no bad feeling about it. I think I was ready to this. It's like when this Olympic was for me, like, it's hard enough to make it with 2 kids, to be very far from the team, and this was the pandemic things and all these things. So it was really, really hard. And I knew I didn't, and I was injured too. So I kind of, I didn't know I'm not gonna make it, but it was not perfect. So I know my preparation was not perfect, and if I could make it, that would be awesome. But I think I felt like I'm not there, like when you know that that's not enough, but you put in the bucket kind of things, like.
Yeah.
So it would be a miracle if I could make that Olympic, because it was just, I was so busy with everything else, and my brain was just not there anymore. So can you imagine, I went to Hungary for the trials totally alone, because my bigger son was in already first grade, and I couldn't take him out. And my coach is my husband. He had to stay with the kids. And I went there totally alone, training alone before the trials, like the last 3 weeks when it's the most important. You are there totally alone to measuring your time with the GPS, kind of, it was like, I just looking back, I'm feeling like I was really serious about it. That I gonna, so all these things didn't really, it was not perfect. But
you still got 2 Olympic gold medals. That's the thing, though, right? Like, I mean, a third, sure, would have been nice, but two's okay still. That'll do.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt that, like, okay, I already made it. So I really wanted to make it. It's not like I didn't want, I wanted. It's just the life around me was different, and I was not able to put it in the first priority. Like, if I would, maybe I could make it, because I think I was strong enough. I paddled very good times. It was nothing physically I could not achieve like what I did before. I think it just mentally I was not there anymore. Like, what's more important things in my life, and I just push it, kind of away.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And I knew that. So when I didn't make the team, it hurt. But, you think about it and you realize, yeah.
Not quite the same as you're saying, Sydney, when you haven't been to an Olympics yet and you're sort of that close, whereas this time around it's sort of a little bit different. I always like to find out, Krisztina, what you do with the medals. We love finding out from our guests who win medals what they do with them. Do you have them on display? Are they just in a box somewhere? Like, what do you do with your medals?
No, I'm in the shelf somewhere. In the drawer. No, sorry, drawer somewhere.
Yep. Open up a drawer. Oh, those. I won them. I remember those. Do you plan maybe one day to like put them on display perhaps? Or is that sort of just you think they're permanent home?
I don't know. I feel like the further I go from the Olympic, I appreciate it more. Like, I feel like time goes by, you appreciate more what it's happened in the past, and I can maybe one day I'm gonna put it out because I'm gonna be so proud that I did that. I'm not there yet. So
yet.
I have a lot of things from the 2 Olympics, and my husband have a lot of things from his 3 Olympics. And when we're gonna have place and room for it, I think we're gonna maybe make a nice room with all this.
You have a museum almost. It sounds like you have 5 Olympics between you.
Exactly. Yeah.
got a few
my
things to
husband
cover.
was in 5 Olympics. He went 3, compete in 3 and 2 as of my coach. So 5 Olympics.
Exactly. So did that mean then? So because he went to Sydney, Athens, Beijing, and then obviously with you in London and Rio. So neither of you went to Tokyo. So, I mean, that was like the first one you'd missed all millennium, basically, that there was no representation. It's like the family business. That must have felt weird on that level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Paris, Los Angeles. LA, it's in your state right now.
Maybe we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. Maybe.
Down the road. Come on, like it's you can drive there tomorrow, and then you got to come to Australia, obviously, for Brisbane. Yeah, exactly. We'll wrap up with a set of fun, get to know you style questions in just a moment, Krisztina. But one thing I'd love for you to do, because as I said, you're our very first Hungarian athlete we've had on the show. Sell Hungary. Like I know as much as I know, very limited. But for our guests who maybe don't know much about Hungary, like why should people go there? Why should people visit? It looks like a beautiful country. Sell it. Be Hungarian tourism right now, Krisztina. Sell the country to our listeners.
Hungary! You must see Hungary. It's such an amazing country and such amazing people. Like you would think they are rude, and after you would think they are so nice. They just so.
Can I jump in there really quickly? I'm glad you said that because we had a joke for a while. Might have been during Rio. For some reason, I can't even remember why, but we said Hungarians were just very serious and not funny. I think we just basically had an ongoing joke about Hungarians don't know what comedy is. So I'm glad you can clear that up. And if you want to tell a joke to clarify that Hungarians are funny, by all means, please do.
No, I'm so bad with jokes, but yeah, Hungarians are really, really funny, and we have a sense of humor, but maybe it's a little bit different than here in the US, example, because my husband always says, you don't have a humor. And I said, I have. You don't understand my humor. So yeah, it's very different. And the country is amazing. It's Budapest. I think it's the funnest city ever. It's a lot of things to do, and it's really fun. And the countryside, it's very interesting. It's very traditional and going back in history and it's very diverse. We have very, very poor, but I mean poor like old school and the very traditional part of the country, and we have very modern as Budapest and fun part. And yeah, you have to go see it. It's just
definitely. I sadly have actually never been to Europe in general, but in all seriousness, a bit of a trek for Australians, as you can imagine. But I think the day I do go to Europe, it's the one parts of the continent that have always interested me are sort of more to the east. like, sure, I want to go to the UK and France and Germany, those sort of places, but I've always been more intrigued by places like Hungary and, going further east. Like, I know I'm not meant to say this in 2022 when we're recording this, Krisztina, but I've always wanted to go to Russia. Not right now, but, it's sort of places like that I've always wanted to visit. So
Different,
I'll put it on the
yes.
list. Definitely put it on the list.
You should watch the movie, I think, Euro Tour, maybe that's the name.
Euro Trip, is it?
Euro Trip, maybe.
Yeah,
I've never seen it, but my husband always telling me, like when you go to Eastern Europe, and it's so true. And
I actually had a friend at university. She was, I think she was from Bratislava, but she'd grown up a lot in Hungary, and she used to. There is a scene in that movie where they go to Slovakia and basically make it like $1 puts you in like a palace. So like, yeah, not the best reception of Eastern Europe in that movie, but it's funny. It's funny.
But it's funny. This is what I try to say. It's funny. Yes. And
there's the Hungarian humor. It's there, right? You can laugh at it. So it's like,
come on.
There it is. That's
and it's so funny because in Israel they had like because my husband is from Israel and they had this show. I don't know what's the name of the show, and they make fun of the all the culture, and there is they try to talk in Hungarian, and he always telling me these words, but he learned from that show. It's so funny. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just Hungary. It's fun, and people are really have the humor. Just we don't speak so much English. This is the problem. So you guys have to learn Hungarian, and you're gonna understand the humor and
always
the fun
down for a challenge. I definitely will try that out. And thank you for clarifying that. And we apologise to the country of Hungary for saying that Hungary isn't funny. We've now clarified that you are. Krisztina, we like to wrap up with a set of get to know you style questions. Now these, as always, a questionnaire that Team Canada gave to their athletes ahead of the 2016 and 2018 Olympics. Bit of fun, random questions. And as always, if you want to, there is a drawing element. I don't know if you're a good drawer or not, but you don't have to. But if you feel like it, you can draw after this interview, email it into me, and we'll put it on our social media. But you don't have to. So, for example, here, you can draw a picture of yourself. There's draw a picture of a Canadian animal, but I guess you could draw a picture of a Hungarian animal. And what would the coolest Olympic medal look like? So are you a good drawer or not really?
No, I'm actually very bad.
Okay, all right. We'll skip that then. Don't worry about that. Actually, just on that, there's a question I'll ask. What animals, like what sort of animals would you look out for in Hungary? If I'm like out and about, and what wild animals do you have in Hungary?
You know what? We are so lucky. I'm just thinking about it because in Australia, how much
yes.
Anyway, you guys haven't here in the US too, like rattlesnake and I don't know what kind of animal can kill you. In Hungary, actually, it's a very, very, very calm place because we don't have animals that really can kill you. Like we have some bears in the mountain, but not not a grizzly or something,
The nice
like
bears.
A wolf and maybe fox or something, but nothing like
none of these mountain lions in America and grizzlies and
not
snake
really
spiders.
So it's very safe. Hungary, it's very safe.
Okay, all right. That's positive in the Hungary column for visiting Hungary. So there you go. So I'll start off with the first question here. If you could choose any Olympic host city, where would it be? I can think of Budapest. I mean, I think they've bid for the Olympics a couple of times, haven't they? But obviously never quite made it.
Yeah, actually, I was part of the when they tried to promote it. Yeah, we didn't make it. It was very political. We have to pull it back because we had a vote that the Hungarian people doesn't want the Olympic in Budapest.
Right.
No, because it's too much money and we don't have money. Anyway, understandable. So I would go South America somewhere.
Yeah.
Like Argentina.
That'd be good. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that was great about Rio having it, obviously, is having an Olympics in South America. But I remember when they got over the line and won it, that their big push was, hey, here's a map of the world. Look where all the Olympics have been. None in South America. So obviously got them over the line there. Now I'm intrigued for this one, Krisztina, because your coach is your husband. The weirdest instruction a coach ever gave you was?
What does that mean? Sorry.
Like, so the silly, the strangest, like the oddest. Like, I mean, he's telling you you're too old, so like retire. But has he ever told you something where you've just kind of gone, what? Like, why are you telling me that?
Oh, wow. I think it was many, many times. I just cannot recall it.
I think we go with the fact that he's basically said to you, you're too old. Like, yeah, I think that's an answer to that one in itself.
Yeah. He is very strict with me, so he would tell me he would not cover it with the sugar.
Yeah. Okay. That works sometimes. That works. Now we touched on the gym aspect and the training aspect. When you are training, do you have a favorite workout? Is there sort of something that you like doing more than others?
The favorite, I love to paddle. I don't like to go to the gym. Touching weights for me, it's like, no, I don't want to go. And
on the water.
Yeah, I was actually working in the gym because I was a personal trainer, and I'm not a big gym person. I'm not.
Good. All right. I'm glad that we can hear that on the show. We don't always feel like when we interview Olympians, we've got to hit the gym straight afterwards. That's a good thing. If you could have lunch with any one person, who would it be?
Who would it be? My grandfather.
Aw, I like it when somebody goes the family route. That's nice. I like that. Good answer. Speaking of food, what is your favorite sandwich?
Sandwich. I like hamburger.
Yes, you're in a good place for those. Very. Which I mean, I've lived in America. It's very tempting with the food, and I can imagine though that when you're training, that you've got to dial it back a little bit. It's sort of like, because a lot of the food there in America is not exactly on the healthy side, right? So you got to be quite careful, don't you?
Yeah, my husband always tell me the story that so many Israeli come here to work or move here, and they get so fat in the first 2 years because they come cheap food. You go all this cheap burger place or cheap Mexican place, or I don't, and they just get fat. And because it's so bad for you sometimes.
And the portion sizes, right? Even for the cheap, you get like a meal that should feed you for a week.
They give you this huge, oh, you want small? Yeah, I want small. And they give you this big, oh my gosh, everything is huge. When I moved here, I had a really hard time to find my balance with the food and finding the good place to eat. And it was so bad.
It's a challenge. Yeah, I the first time I ever went to America, and back then I wasn't somebody who really liked salad or things like that. But after 2 days, I'm like, I want a salad. I want something that isn't coated in fat, please. You just like, give me something fresh.
Yeah, and the thing is that they make such a big difference with pricing. It's insane for me that if you want to eat something healthy, it's like, it's so expensive, and the other it's so cheap that
kind of have to eat bad half the time, don't you? If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Yes, good answer. I like that one. We could have flying kayak in the Olympics. That would be fun. We
have actually the foil.
Yeah. That could work. I see. Coming up with all these things on the show today. We're just talking about bad food, so let's talk about some bad food. The best candy. What is your favorite candy?
I don't like candy.
Don't like candy?
My son just put this here for me.
Got some snacks there. Have some M&Ms.
Go to swim, and I like this one.
Right. Okay. That counts. That works. As a kid, who was your favorite sports team? Right. Okay, that works.
It's the Hungarian soccer team.
Okay, and because obviously is soccer sort of the main sport in Hungary? Is that kind of like what outside of canoeing, I guess? So
Right, yeah. So soccer, it's everywhere in the world. I think it doesn't matter
Yeah.
it's succeeding or not, and the soccer is the yeah.
I remember
like
I know my World Cup history enough to know that Hungary did all right. What was in the 50s or the 60s, wasn't it? Made a couple of World Cup finals. So,
yeah, yeah.
that's great Hungarians.
We have we have history we can cry back. So it's
Live on it. Live on it, Krisztina. Australia, come on. We barely make the World Cup. So, we'd kill to make a final. We'd never shut up about that. Do you have a favorite sports movie?
favorite sports movie. No, but I have a book, the Agassi
Okay.
book. Sound?
Yeah,
The
go
author-
for it. It definitely counts. Yes, we should change that up. Book or movie? Go for book. Yes.
Yeah, the Open. I think that's the name of the book. It's
Okay.
Agassi.
Is that
was-
Andre Agassi? Is it book?
Yeah.
Did you say? Nice. Okay. I loved Andre Agassi growing up. Never read his book though, but highly recommended. It seems.
The title is Open. The name is
Okay.
Open. I'm not
That's
sure.
not that old. I remember that got a bit of press, wasn't it? Because it was sort of about Brooke Shields and his drug career, but it all that made the news. But obviously, I can imagine it's a lot more than that. So I'll check it out. Okay.
Yeah, check it out. It's worth to. It's really good. The couple of the beginning was strange, but I just get stuck. It's really amazing.
I do actually. My favorite books are generally biographies or autobiographies, sports books. That's generally what I like to read. So I'll put it on the list. Good. All right. Good. We're learning a lot about each other today. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I would live in Hungary.
Ah, nice. Is that a plan? Like one day, do you want to sort of go back there?
I wish, but we won't. No, I can go back. It's my kids, they live here, they grow up here. My husband is from Israel and from here. Hungary is not in the.
Not in the plans. Do you get to visit much though? Do you sort of go back home and visit when you can?
Honest with you, this is why I was kayaking for such a long time, because it was a so good opportunity to go home all the time for 4 or 5 months, and we spend time in Hungary all summer and a little bit of spring and fall, and we had a chance to go to Israel every year. My husband family are there, so yeah, this is why I was like very comfortable to stay with kayaking such a long time, because it was just a really good opportunity for me to visit. So this is the first year actually I didn't go home.
Wow.
This summer. Yeah.
Jeez, that's a long time between that. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
given that we're saying that you're not completely retired, Krisztina, you'll get to go back soon, right? Like that
I know.
training.
I have motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. There's your motivation right there. I'm not too old. I want to go back to Hungary. I want to go home. I want to visit my family. I want to train. So I need to keep going. All right. Like
Exactly.
keep spurring it through. Exactly. Krisztina, before we let you go, if people want to stay up to date with you, sort of follow your journey from this point on, social media, anywhere that people can sort of stay up to date with you?
I have social media. I have Instagram and I have Facebook. I'm a little bit turned it now to real estate because I'm in real estate, but still, the same
If people
page.
in the area want to buy a house or rent somewhere, they can find you there, right? You need some
Somebody wants to come
business.
to the US. Let me know.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. People can hit you up there, and not often you get to buy a house from somebody who's won a couple of Olympic gold medals. So
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
that would work a trick there. Krisztina, it's been such an honor to have you on the show, to learn about your journey, to learn about the sport in Hungary, to learn about Hungary as well, and just everything else in between. We really do appreciate your time on the show. So thanks for joining us. And again, thank you so much for clarifying that Hungarians are funny. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me. And it was really an honor to be here.